Welcome and thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Winston Wikwito. I'm the head of Africa and partnerships at LexisNexis South Africa. It is quite a great honor to welcome you all today and wish you a happy Africa Day 2022. Now, the vision for Africa remains pretty much the same as it was on the 25th of May, 1963, when 32 African countries signed the Charter of the Organization of African Unity, which later evolved into the African Union as we know it today. And that vision is for Africa to achieve inclusive and sustainable development, and to unite and to ensure the welfare and well-being of the people of Africa. So today is for us really to signifies Africa's identity and unity, and to continue to strive to promote deeper regional integration. It is also a day for us to espouse the values of human dignity, non-racism, non-sexism, equality, and supremacy of the law. As far as today's discussions go, we have a panel of experts who will, in their areas, be unpacking our topic for the day, which is fostering justice, awareness, and action. And this is something that LexisNexis is very passionate about, and in its role as a champion of the rule of law and as a legal technology company. We have a proud legacy of supporting the rule of law on a global basis, and a vision of the law and justice that enhancing the potential of the African continent by advancing the rule of law. That is our vision. We believe that law and justice must be accessible to all and be respected by everybody. This is the only way that we can have and develop a peaceful, equitable, as well as a prosperous society. And yeah, we're certainly looking forward to the discussions today. Leading our discussions this morning, it gives me a distinct pleasure and honor to introduce LexisNexis South Africa Sales and Marketing Director, Melanie Ramalho. Over to you, Mel.
Good morning to everybody. It certainly is a pleasure just to be here. Thank you, Winston. I love your jacket. You're looking great for this Africa Day. And I just want to wish everybody a happy Africa Day and welcome. As we all know, justice is important for social stability, interdependence, and equal dignity. It is at the heart of what we want for our continent's people and for the society at large. At this moment in history, we are long past the point where it is acceptable simply to be aware of the injustices that continue to negatively impact millions of Africans. Now is the time for real action. United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, #16 aims to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, to provide access to justice for all, and to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. The African Union's agenda for 2063 also lists amongst its 7 aspirations the ideals of a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth, sustainable development, and an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law. A peaceful and secure Africa, an Africa as strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and partner. Today, we will be exploring how the rule of law can be harnessed around the continent to build more just and prosperous societies in Africa. We'll also be exploring how legal associations can stir up action and place pressure on African governments and legislators to move with speed in upholding the rule of law. There are known impediments to prosperity on the continent. But as we all know, this is a continent with massive potential. And there's a strong correlation between the rule of law and the economic development. We certainly are fortunate to have esteemed panel guests here today, which will share with us their insights, their perspectives around how we all can play a part in fostering justice, awareness, and action. And with no further ado, as I am privileged and honored and humbled this morning, I'd like to welcome Vumbai Nyemba, President of the SADC Lawyers Association, which represents law societies, bar associations, and individual lawyers from 15 member Southern Africa regions. She's a well-established lawyer and an owner of the firm, V. Nyemba and Associates. She has served as the Vice President and President of the Law Society of Zimbabwe, has participated in constitutional making process as a technical advisor, and sits on various boards. Welcome, Vumbai. We also have today, and I'd like Vumbai to put on a camera so that we can see her and just welcome her on board.
Welcome,
you,
Vumbai.
Thank you. Next on my list, I'm going to introduce everybody so that we can just start the wonderful conversation, is Edward. Edward Mapara. He's the Executive Secretary of the Law Society of Zimbabwe. He represents and spearheads the association's role of effectively and efficiently representing and regulating Zimbabwe's legal profession to promote its sustainable development, the observance of the rule of law, and foster public trust and confidence in the justice system. He's also an executive committee member of the International Institute of the Law Association Chief Executives. Welcome, Edward. Morning, Edward, welcome. Then we have Aisha Abdallah, partner and head of disputes at Anjawala and Kana. She's a strong advocate of the rule of law in a role as a patron of the Pro Bono Committee and director of the ALN Academy. This is a charity established by the ALN network, which promotes the rule of law in Africa by delivering high quality legal training and capacity building to public and private sector lawyers. She's also written and spoken on a wide range of continuous issues, including corruption, corporate crime, and compliance issues. Welcome, Aisha.
Morning, and thank you.
Thank you. And then I have Teresa Jennings, one of our own that works with us, our Vice President and Treasurer of the LexisNexis Rule of Law Foundation and, and head of the Rule of Law Development for LexisNexis Legal and Professional. Teresa is responsible for cultivating relationships with diverse groups, including funding and governmental bodies to create, develop, and advance rule of law projects around the world. She's currently serving as a steering committee member of the UN Global Alliance for reporting progress on peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. Welcome, Teresa Jennings, and I call her Terry. Thank you. And she's, as we're speaking, where are you, Teresa? Just tell us, where are we?
I am currently in Monrovia, just came in last night from Freetown, Sierra Leone. So I'm in Africa for Africa Day. It's my privilege.
Awesome, awesome. Welcome. And we're so glad you landed safely. So welcome to all of you. And let's get straight into it. Today, we're going to have a dynamic discussion based on key pointers that we've put together from a rule of law report, as well as just talking to everybody around this panel today about Africa Day, but looking at all different aspects today. And we will, as the questions come in, which I will observe, please note that we do have a Q&A section where you can go and ask questions as we go through the day. And I will constantly have a look, as I am the facilitator and the coordinator of the session today, and will highlight if there's anything that you would like to further discuss today as we get through the discussion of today. So I just want to welcome all our panelists once again. Also welcome everybody that is on the call today. So I'm going to start off with Mumbai. Mumbai, tell us about some of the SADC Lawyers Association activities, and also just unpack the abbreviation for us now at the regional and international levels to strengthen, defend, and advance the rule of law. You're on mute. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Melanie. As you know, from inception, the purpose for the formation of the SADC Lawyers Association was to deal with the issues of the rule of law and to ensure that there was equality of the operation of the law to every citizen. And since inception, the SADC Lawyers Association has not rested. It has done quite a number of things, from the basic things like monitoring election. We would send a group of election observers to make sure that elections are free and fair, and that if they see the presence of SADC Lawyers Association in the SADC region, that would obviously also silently affect the processes as well. SADC Lawyers Association has done quite a number of things. We have supported the promotion and protection of human rights and the rule of law ever since. We also established a pro bono, a regional pro bono network and public interest law platform to promote equal access to justice. SADC Law is also heavily vested in the institutionalization of a regional support facility to promote independence of the judiciary and the legal profession. So under this project, we are strengthening key institutions for upholding rule of law and separation of powers, which is quite key to us and which is really a problem in Southern Africa and in Africa as a whole. So as we celebrate Africa Day, we are also saying to Africa, we want to continue a SADC Law. We want to say to Southern Africa, as SADC Law, we want to continue to work with the governments to ensure that the rule of law is respected. As SADC Law also will provide leadership in terms of establishment of a regional seat for international commercial arbitration. We saw that it was quite important to have this regional seat, because we now also have issues of Africa, of continental Africa free trade, and we think arbitration is going to be very important. And yeah, we also working on the alignment of the laws. There's also a need for us as SADC Law, SADC Law, or as SADC as a region, to also have some uniformity in laws, especially relating to trade. I think we'll also talk about the currency that is going to be used when people are going to court and claim and making claims. So all those things are what SADC Law is doing. It's harmonizing the laws. We have also made interventions, like in Lesotho. We have assisted in the crafting of their legal framework. We have also assisted, I think, in the resuscitation of their law society that was getting tired, or it did not have a direction. So we want lawyers strong in the region, so that we want lawyers to be strong in the region, so that they keep checking on the very important issue of the rule of law in their jurisdictions. Yeah, basically, I think that's that for now.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. What a wonderful introduction, as well as just diving what is the bright spots that's happening in the society as well. So thank you for that. And while you are catching your breath, I'm going to move to Edward quickly. And Edward, the Advancing the Rule of Law in Africa report reveals the majority of lawyers across the continent believe it is important. Believe it is government who is responsible for advancing the rule of law. Who would you say ultimately has the most responsibility for advancing the rule of law? Is it government, the judiciary, lawyers, civil societies, or the general population?
Thank you, Melanie, for that question. In litigation, I would call what you've given me a leading question. I am a lawyer. So if you say lawyers, most lawyers are saying this is the position, I'm inclined to go with the flow. In fact, when I look at government, I look at it in its totality. Government is three arms of the state, which is the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. So when you look at it in that totality, there is no doubt in my mind that the greatest responsibility falls upon the government to advance and promote the rule of law. There is the greatest burden and duty upon the state to ensure that the rule of law is observed in the country. But having said that, you can't sit back and say, if the government is not pushing enough, we should relax. In fact, when the government sits back and is not doing enough, it then means that other players have to come in. And that's where the legal profession, the civic society, and the general populace come in as they demand that there be rule of law. For the legal profession, it is not just an issue of these principles. It is also an issue of bread and butter. The legal profession cannot survive without the rule of law. The legal profession survives on ensuring people's rights are respected, people's rights are enforced. So there must be a rule of law in that there must be the courts that are functional, where you can take your client's disputes for resolution. There must be an executive that is able to enforce the court decisions. And there must be a parliament that makes good laws. So the legal profession then becomes a central player in advancing the rule of law. But the primary duty, I will contend, will still be the responsibility of the government through its three states, the three arms of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Answered like a true expert lawyer from that leading question. Thank you. And just so inclusive. Thank you for that. And as I give Edward a little bit of breathing space, I want to move over to Aisha. Aisha, what do you believe is the role of the private sector in partnering to assist in addressing Africa's issues, promote inclusive development, reduce inequalities, tackle unemployment, and bridge the gaps?
Thank you, Melanie. Because in Africa, we have a lot of gaps in government provision of services to the citizens. This means the private sector has an increased role to play to bridge that gap. And for most private sector organizations, they do understand that in addition to their legal structure and whatever contracts they have in place, there's something called a social contract, which is the contract with the community around them. And this social contract is very important because it ensures the sustainability of their organization. Because at the end of the day, we tell our clients that we can assist you with paperwork, we can make sure the right contracts are in place. But what we can't do is we can't be on the ground with you. That requires you to foster good community relationships. This means that in Africa, CSR programs are very important, and they are actually part and parcel of sustainability. So as you are building your plant and your factory, you need to also think about what you're giving back to the community to entrench yourself, to ensure that you have good relations, to ensure that you have safety and security for your workers. So it's actually part and parcel of sustainability. Yeah, I could go on, but I think that's enough.
I know it's a passion of yours, so which is why I just knew I could ask you that question. Thank you, Aisha. And, you know, just moving to Terry, my colleague, Terry, the LexisNexis Rule of Law Foundation, which we are also passionate for because we give back, was launched in 2019 as a nonprofit entity, through which LexisNexis seeks out and shapes projects with key partners to drive the rule of law globally. Can you share with us what is the rule of law? And also what does the foundation do? Some insights. And how do we make it come alive every day by carrying through that voice?
My boss, Ian McDougall, would say, if you ask 4 lawyers what the rule of law is, you'll get 5 different answers. The rule of law is not easy to understand, and sometimes it even gets politicized. And so what he did was look at all the definitions from around the world, including the UN's definition. And he pulled out the key elements that were in every definition. And he used that to craft our own definition. It's 4 key elements. First of all, transparency of the law. Is the law written down? Can you get access to it? Can you read what you're said to have broken if you're sent to jail? Second, access to legal remedy. Do you have access to a lawyer? That simple ability to have defense for yourself. Can you or your family get someone to help you? Third, equal treatment under the law. If the law applies to 2 of us, is it going to treat one of us differently because of their gender, their race, their religion, or something about them that they cannot or do not choose to change? And then finally, is the law being interpreted by the law at hand, or is something external to the law changing that outcome? And it could be as small as court delays or as large as corruption and bribery. We call that independent judiciary. When all 4 of these are in place, you're building your society on a stable base. But think of what happens if you try to build a house without that stable foundation. It won't last. We know through data that when the rule of law is strong, GDP goes up, life expectancy rises, child mortality decreases. Part of what we're passionate about the Rule of Law Foundation is that we find real ways to make a difference. I mentioned just this morning that I recently left Freetown, Sierra Leone. A few years ago, we were in Freetown and we realized that the Legal Aid Board was using one set of books to go all across the country in Sierra Leone. And they had 16 lawyers, but they were moving the books from place to place. We took those books and took them to South Africa, where our teams there cut off the binding. These books were terrible shape because they'd been through everything. Cut off the binding, put them through our scanners, rebound them, and gave them new books. But we also gave them a thumb drive. I learned just 2 days ago that that thumb drive allowed them to set up 30 legal aid shops around the country. And that's real change. So I'll turn that back to you.
Something small that can have such a huge impact. How amazing, Terry, and how insightful and what great work. I want to turn to all of us and ask a question to all the panelists today. What are your perceptions of the current state of the rule of law in Africa? What are some of the major impediments and opportunities that you see or have experienced? Anyone can just jump in and take some of the floor right now and just help me with that one. Yes, Terry.
I'd say that, and apologies for turning off my video, but my bandwidth signal is very low. One of the things I'd remind everyone is that the SDGs have a goal 17, which is partnerships under the rule of law. The problems that I've seen over the last week or so in Africa, and even before that, everyone knows that they're complex, they're intense. It will take all of us working together. Edward, I agree with you. It starts with the government and the three branches of government that most societies have. But civil society plays an important role as watchdogs. And we as lawyers have an increasing role, and that's recognized under the SDGs. I think when we put our time and talent on the things that we see that we know we can change, and it could be literacy for children and having them eventually be able to read the law, or looking out for vulnerable people like women and making sure that they have a seat at the table, or finding ways to meld informal justice and the customary law with the formal law, that will make real change. I see a question about the role of gender and whether the institutions are effectively addressing gender. Does anybody want to take that one on?
The major issue with commissions, be they Human Rights Commission, gender commissions, is an issue of resources. The Constitution requires that this be funded through the Consolidated Revenue Fund to create a level of independence. But the question is, are there enough resources that are made available? And as long as there are insufficient resources being availed, the work of these commissions is severely curtailed, and therefore they are not able to effectively discharge their constitutional mandates. So there is a situation where the commissions end up relying on donor financing. And it is a truism to say that he who pays the piper calls the tune. The donor will always determine the agenda that he would want to be pursued. And that, in a way, will mean that certain areas may remain neglected, or other areas, functional areas, are given an upper hand. So there is still a lot of work to be done in ensuring that independent commissions are really independent by ensuring that they are properly resourced. And as long as that resourcing also goes through a third party who has a discretion in when to release the resources, you find that the independence remains severely compromised. So that has been the experience in regard to the commissions in this country. Thank you.
Not sure if maybe you want to take that up, Aisha. You're on mute, Aisha.
Yes, I agree with Edward about the resourcing being a key issue. I didn't really have anything further to add on that.
I think one point I would add is that when there's resources coming from donors, there has to be a real plan to ensure that the country themselves is ready, willing, and able to keep a project going long term. Because it could be a finite 5-year or 3-year project, and then it's done. And if the country isn't ready to take it on and make it its own project, it kind of stops. And it needs to be something that's embraced not just by the government, but also local civil society groups and embraced by the people. So we're getting more towards that people-centered justice, really understanding what the people in the streets need and want from their systems of justice. And that, I think, will be the things that really make it the long haul, that go well beyond a donor starting. And then talking to all the lawyers out there listening to us today, your time and talent make a huge difference, because we find at the Rule of Law Foundation, it's the time and talent that we bring through the foundation toward these projects that make a huge difference. We're doing a property rights kiosk in South Africa. That's all through our volunteers. We're doing videotapes for the legal clinics of South Africa Law Consortium to help real people understand true issues and bringing that back to them. These are all really cool projects that we're doing by people giving a day or two of their time and bundling it together and bringing it back out. So I think there are creative ways to get past the resource question, but we really need to think creatively and outside of the box in ways that we haven't done before.
Absolutely, some pertinent points that you're raising there, Teresa. Maybe I can direct this question to Vimbai. I just want to find out from you, Vimbai, as a legal professional, is there a general willingness from lawyers to work with law associations and government on rule of law and justice advancement projects? What has been your experience?
It's a good question. Thank you very much. Lawyers are members of the law associations. So law associations are created for the members and by the members. So there is a willingness amongst the lawyers to work with their associations. There is also a willingness by the lawyers even to work with SADC, because SADC is made up of the associations of the member countries of the SADC. Lawyers have been very active in all the regions. I remember at one time, there was the issue of the tribunal, if you remember the tribunal that was set up and it was dismantled. All the associations filed, most of the associations filed their constitutional applications in their Supreme Courts and constitutional courts in their respective jurisdictions, showing that they are willing to ensure that the issues of the rule of law are taken seriously by governments.
Just as a follow-up to,
yes.
I'd like to find out from you, what are your views? What do you think African governments should be doing to improve the fitness of Africa's economies? And I'm asking because I know you said, as the president of SADC, it's a regional body representing, 16 SADC countries. It would be important for us to understand what are your views in that regard around the areas of accelerating infrastructure development, deepening regional integration. I heard you earlier, you mentioned the FCTA.
Mm-hmm. I think governments are trying. There's one thing that we've got very good governments in terms of putting paperwork together. Our African governments have got very good constitutions. They've got the 3 arms of government in place. They are also busy building infrastructures even outside towns to make sure that everyone accesses justice. They try by all means to make sure that they've got the correct personnel in the offices to ensure that even cases are done as fast as possible. Even without resources, they go out of their way to make sure that things are working. But having all those things together and then implementing is something else. So the good thing about African governments is we have everything in place. Everything is if you come to my country, you want to find out about a lot of policies, you will find that they are all in writing, in black and white. Implementation may be not be done very well, but we all have those things in place. In terms of issues of free trade, I think there's been, most governments are welcoming it. Remember the idea of this, the continental free trade area was to make Africa one, a united Africa, as was dreamt by, Gaddafi also dreamt about it. He wanted a united Africa. Some people go on to say he also wanted to be the president of a united Africa. But you can see that a lot of dialogue is being done around that area. And as lawyers also, we have started to talk about the continental free trade and how the laws are going to be harmonized, how even, like I said before, the issues of currency. And government is actually promoting such work, governments are promoting such workshops. And yeah, they are trying as much as they can. although we have not arrived, the rule of law will always be a process. And the economies of our countries are also going to be a process, like I'm saying, because if we don't have proper structures, if we don't respect the rule of law, our economies are not going to progress. But there are efforts. Politics and policies sometimes are two different things. We try, but sometimes the politics of the day could misfire.
Yes, indeed. Aisha, what's your take on this?
I think as much as there's a correlation between rule of law and the economic development, there is a big difference. If you look at China, China is the fastest growing economy in the world. It will overtake the USA in a number of years. I think we would all agree it is hardly an example of a country with rule of law. So one of the things I would say is that I think African governments are very much torn between improving human rights and rule of law, respect for democracy on the one hand, and actually achieving certain economic goals. And they're not always the same thing. So I know in Kenya, our government has borrowed heavily from the Chinese to finance very large infrastructure projects, which are actually key to opening up the country. We have I think we have the world's most expensive railway. Although we're not the richest country, we're in debt to the Chinese to a large extent. These issues actually do touch on rule of law because they touch on the independence of our government and the ability of our government to prioritize the interests of the Kenyan people over and above the interests of its creditors. So my take on this is that it's an extremely complex issue. And as much as we might say governments are trying, whether they are trying the right thing and whether we will find ourselves in debt slavery remains to be seen.
Yes, indeed. If there's any questions, please feel free to post them on the chat so that we can have our panelists take your questions. Mel, is your audio back? Are you ready
Let's
to
test it. So I've tried another medium, which is my iPad. Thank goodness for other.
Very clear. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. But Winston, stay on because you're my partner that's helping me today. So thank you, everybody. Let's move to, I want to ask Edward another question. He's been far too quiet, listening to us all. Edward, as a local and national society, can you share with us some of the Law Society of Zimbabwe's activities at a local level to strengthen, defend, and advance the rule of law, and how these are being upscaled to a regional and or international level, if at all?
Well, I enjoy listening. It's a good art to listen, and but I have a few things to share with regards to what the Law Society has been doing in terms of advancing the rule of law. You can split the approaches by the Law Society into two approaches. The first one is inward looking, and the second one is external looking. With the internal initiatives, the Law Society has focused more on building the capacity of the membership, the legal practitioners who are its members. This is a capacity in terms of ability to run practices, capacity in terms of practical skills, and capacity in terms of specialized areas like human rights litigation. Then also capacity around ethics and professionalism. So this is more of enabling the lawyers to be able to effectively provide an effective service to the litigants, those who are seeking to access justice, those who are seeking to access the rule of law. The lawyers are not good enough if they are not properly trained, and the service that they will render may not be as effective and achieve what the clients will be seeking. So internal capacity of the membership is an important development. In terms of externally, the Law Society has been engaging various key stakeholders within the justice sector. The Law Society engages with the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, representing the executive. We also engage the National Prosecuting Authority. We engaged the Parliament of Zimbabwe only last week. We had a meeting with the Speaker of Parliament, and through those engagements, we try and assist build the capacity of Parliament to come up with good laws. The Law Society has developed a significant number of model laws for the government. Some have been taken on board and been implemented. Some remains on the shelves gathering dust. It is our hope that when the situation improves, the government will be able to pick up, dust the models and introduce them through Parliament. We also engage with the police, among other government institutions. So through that, we believe that we are helping in advancing the rule of law in Zimbabwe. We also engage a very key stakeholder, which is the judiciary. And we have engaged the judiciary at 2 levels. We have provided training for the lower tier of the judiciary, which is the magistracy. And for the senior bench, the judges, we engage them through what we call the judicial colloquium. And this is where we meet, discuss matters of mutual interest, matters affecting the delivery of justice within the courts. And this is an initiative which I'm pleased to say has now been replicated in some other jurisdictions. I was pleasantly pleased some 2 months ago to hear that Zambia is now also having a bar bench colloquium where the judges and members of the profession meet and discuss issues affecting justice delivery. So we think a lot of our local experiences can easily be upscaled to an international or a regional level. In achieving this, we obviously rely on institutions like SADC, the IBA, where we send our representatives, they meet, they share our experiences, and also copy other experiences from other regions and jurisdictions. So this is what we have been doing. And we have offered quite significant amounts of training, like in the National Prosecuting Authority. We have offered training to the Legal Aid Directorate in the belief that capacity within the legal profession, as those in private practice, alone is not sufficient if the counterparts who are in government are not similarly capacitated. So we try to achieve an equality of arms so that we have an effective adversarial system. You can't have a heavyweight boxer fighting a bantamweight boxer in a bout. That will not be proper. So you need people to be equal in terms of skilling. And this is what we have been trying to achieve, among other things. Thank you very much.
And just a quick one, thank you for that insights. And I can see there's openness around government to work with lawyers. How about the capacity building? Is there intentional capacity building, Edward, when it comes to how to address individual and institutional capacity building? What's your view on that?
Yes, our training has been very focused. When we started training Legal Aid Directorate employees and NPA employees, our focus was the new constitution and how officers in the government offices can infuse constitutional principles in the manner that they handle their cases. We are coming from a situation where maybe the key focus of our counterparts has been securing conviction at any cost without giving regard to the human rights of individuals. And these are concepts and precepts that have now been introduced in our new constitution which we are trying to make sure are incorporated and become a new culture within our counterparts in government, so that we are not enemies, we are not real adversaries, but we are merely officers of the court trying to assist achieving justice, but from two different ends. So this is how we have been approaching the issue.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for those insights. And Aisha, just one for you. How do we ensure that the responsibility for pushing or advancing the rule of law and facilitating access to justice is embraced by all lawyers, not just pro bono lawyers, but including, for example, all our commercial and corporate lawyers?
Thank you, Melanie. I think this is a question about education and raising awareness about the impact that rule of law issues has on things like commercial trade, cross-border activities, and attracting foreign direct investment. So I think there are many studies by UN organizations, the World Bank, that try and show that there are linkages. They are not always obvious between these issues. And I think the more we understand as corporate commercial lawyers, the impact it has on our clients' ability to invest and to expand their organization safely and sustainably, I think more lawyers would be getting involved. I think one thing we find in East Africa is that corporate commercial lawyers closely follow tax issues, because tax issues clearly impact corporate organizations. But tax issues also relate to justice issues. There are issues about justice in terms of taxation. So, I mean, it might be that some people see these issues as very distinct, that corporate issues don't have any impact on human rights, but they're actually interlinked. Because if you don't have the ability to protect your investment, if you will not be able to access justice when there's a dispute that you have, then obviously you're very unlikely to wish to put too much money into a commercial enterprise. So I think it's just making these links very clear and doing more advocacy with our other colleagues who might not be currently active in pro bono.
Thank you, Aisha. Terry, I see you have your hand up. And I don't know, is Terry frozen now? Because she had a hand up. Is it on your side too, Winston?
Yes, she does seem to be frozen, Mel.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And I had a question for her, but I'm sure she'll come back. And while we wait, I just want to quickly then, until she's back, ask one last question, which was going to be for Terry, but maybe I should go to Wimbai as a last question to you before I move over to the rule of law report is, and Terry's back. Wimbai, you were saved by Terry is back. There we go. Terry, head up.
I just wanted to thank Aisha for her comment and let you all know that LexisNexis Rule of Law Foundation is working with our parent company, RELX Group, and the tax team therein to try to make all of the tax laws and regulations across Africa transparent for free to all. And we started with Ethiopia. I was talking about it in both Sierra Leone, and I will be talking about it here in Liberia. But there's no reason in the world for people to not be able to see the tax laws across Africa. And that will change not only the business response and their ability to do good, but also government. So it's on both sides. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Don't go off, Terry. I want a call of action question for you. What can we do, Terry, around taking from a rule of law foundation in upholding it? What can we do as a country, as commercials? How can we take call of action? What is it that we need to do to drive the rule of law amongst the Africa teams across the world, as well as just a country and a company?
When I look at Africa, as the world is, they are in a post-COVID world. It's been economically hit. Don't look at the spots that are hurting, but I mean, look at the spots that are hurting, but think of it in new ways, how you can support some aspect of it. Don't get overwhelmed by the entirety of it, because then you'll not do anything. You know what you can do. You know who you're talking to. You can see a problem that you can fix today. If each of you do something, it will make it better for everyone. And what our CEO, Mike Walsh, likes to say is, the advancement of the rule of law is the reason all of us turn on our computers every day. I give you that challenge. Make it the reason you turn on your computer today.
Thank you. Terry's sound was not good there, but I'm going to just summarize some of the aspects today. I just want to say thank you so much for all the panelists before we move over to the Rule of Justice report, but that it was such an insightful discussion. And the last thing Terry was saying is, when we, as a call of action, when you switch on what our group and global CEO always says, every time you switch on your computer, advance the rule of law, you know, think it, work it, do it, voice it, and walk it and talk it and take action, because we are the ones who can make a difference, especially within the legal profession. You carry so much of that inherently, it's part of you. So take it every day to a call of action. It's one step at a time, one person at a time, one act at a time, one legislation at a time, and we can make this happen. And I love what all the associations are doing, like Edward was saying, they have an internal and an external view, an inward looking and an outward looking, training and upskilling and taking capacity. And also what Mumbai was sharing is what to their association stand for, how they build things, how they advance the rule of law, what they are pushing and driving. If we all do something every day through the associations where we sit on, in the organizations that we play and work in, and also what Aisha was saying at the end there, you know, and how we can take control of this by the support of the Rule of Law Foundation, as Terry was sharing with us. Those tax laws are now becoming, we are going to make them free, starting in Ethiopia. And if I look at all the golden nuggets that were shared today, the comments that were shared in the chats as well, thank you to everybody. The conversation around socioeconomic and also just understanding where we're going with rule of law in the future, and how we can push it as our countries, seeing that this is Africa Day. So thank you so much to my esteemed panelists, and apologies for the sound on my side. Terry is in Africa, and sometimes we do have these issues. It is an element of virtual, but it's so nice for us to get together, and we've resolved those sound issues. So thank you very much, everybody. And with no further ado, it comes with great pleasure to introduce Scott Cohen. He's the CEO and founder of Africa Legal. LexisNexis and Africa Legal have a strategic partnership and in place to advance the rule of law in Africa, and we also to impact the work of legal professions across the continent. But as Scott and I was chatting over the last few days, but also to make an impact in the communities that we are serving as well. So it's something very close to his heart, especially children, and making a difference in those communities to advance the children, to give them a voice as well. And I know it's also close to Terry's heart. And it's just a privilege and an honor, Scott, to introduce you and welcome you to Africa Day, welcome you to the webinar. And Scott is going to take us through and launch a very awesome report. So welcome, and over to you, Scott Cohen.
Thank you, Melanie. And I've got to say, I've been sitting here listening to all the comments. It's been fantastic. And Terry, I echo your thoughts. My late mother once said to me, Scott, it's much easier to change 100 things by 1% than one thing by 100%. And I think we're all on the same page here. So without further delay, shall we go to the first slide and launch the report? And I promise to keep it very, very short. So here we have it, advancing the rule of law in Africa. So as we go to this incredible launch today, it's been a great pleasure working with LexisNexis and the partners. Could I have the next slide, please? So this report basically was from over 400 African legal professionals from over 24 African nations, which was fantastic. And it's a fascinating report that you can access at the end of today's presentation through LexisNexis, and we'll put that again in the chat if we can, Melanie. But just going through to the next slide, please. As a quick teaser to the kind of insights held in the report, let's take a quick look at two of the major jurisdictions, being South Africa and Nigeria. Both of these jurisdictions rank the undevelopment of the rule of law as the single greatest challenge facing respondent organizations, followed by a lack of access to reliable legal information, namely in Nigeria, and poor governance, risk and compliance standards in South Africa. Next slide, please. Slide 4. Slide 5. Okay, we're on slide 5. Sorry. Corruption was viewed as a #1 hurdle to the advancement of the rule of law in all but a handful of the African countries, which is represented in this research. Slide 6, please. A sobering statistic provided by the research is that over 75% of all respondents felt that the provision of justice was either unequal or very unequal in their home jurisdictions. Now, on the flip side, this surely must show us how much room there is for improvement and how much urgently such improvement must be sought. Slide 7, please. Support for this more positive outlook is provided via the 60+% of respondents who saw the rule of law as staying the same or improving in their jurisdictions across the next 5 years. With close to 35% of respondents fearing a backslide for the rule of law, however, complacency is most definitely not an option here. Slide 8. And 9, slide 9. In seeking to answer who has the single greatest role to play in addressing rule of law issues, the finger squarely points at governments. Contrast this, however, with the high ranking of government inefficiency as a major obstacle to the rule of law, and the complexities around this issue are evidenced here in this report. As relevant to this fascinating preceding panel discussion, organizations, NGO and law societies were ranked 4 out of 5 in considering their importance in tackling rule of law. Having witnessed the energy and appetite of those representing such bodies on this presentation, I can only think, however, that this is a perception mismatch as to the true power our professional bodies can yield in the face of rule of law challenges. It would seem that action and results will be absolutely required in order to shift this perception for future surveys. Rule 10. Now, that's just a quick overview. So it's now my pleasure to hand you back to Winston and his fantastic jacket for some closing remarks and details on how to access this report.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Scott. I've had a lot of good golden nuggets shared today, and Mel has really wrapped it up and summed it up nicely. One that stands out for me is the interplay and the interlinkness of the investments that are made by the corporate sector, that their investments are a function of a stable justice system, because naturally investors want to know that they're, once they unlock those funds off their balance sheet and start investing, that they will, their investments will yield a return and be protected by a stable justice system. Now, everything that we do as a business at LexisNexis advances the rule of law around the world. And this is why it has been really a great pleasure for us to have partners with Africa Legal on this important research exercise, which has resulted into the Advancing the Rule of Law report, which Scott has just shown you a snapshot of. And our sincere thanks really go to the many in-house counsel, private practice lawyers, members of the judiciary, and government representatives who participated in the survey and shared their important perspectives. The report can be downloaded via the link on the screen now. I saw earlier when we started, someone was asking where's the report. So, and you can also send in a request, to get the report to sales@lexisnexis.co.za, where you'll get a link, to download the report. And we'd like to also ask you to please share your insights, with us quickly via a poll on the screen, which will be up momentarily. If you can please give us your views, we value your feedback. And we know about the value of having up-to-date legal content. And one of the key pillars of the rule of law is transparency of the law, which refers to the fact that laws must be clear, they must be concise, they must be affordable and accessible while protecting fundamental human rights. And then so as LexisNexis, really, we have the Africa online content, which will give you access to the best-in-class case law, legislation, and regulatory alerts, from a trusted content provider, all up to date and powered by the latest technology. So you can reach out to us, and find out how to get access to that. Look out for the recording of the webinar, which will be shared with you in post-event communications from LexisNexis via email and on our social media channels. And also, most importantly, the Africa division at LexisNexis is open for business. It does not matter which part of Africa you are at. We will reach out to you, reach out to us, and let's see how we can assist you. We'll continue to establish local partnerships in the many different jurisdictions where you're at, and continue to enable the private and the public sector to better navigate the fluid nature of the African legal and regulatory landscape. So really, we thank you for making the time for being with us this morning. I would like to also thank our esteemed panelists, Vimbai Nyemba, Edward Mapara, Aisha Abdullah, and thank you very much, Teresa Jennings. Thank you, Scott. And thank you to our moderator, Melanie Ramalo. She's our Sales and Marketing Director at LexisNexis. Thank you for joining us, and have a blessed day. Happy Africa Day.